So this lady asks, this black lady, are white women really that scared of black women? And I'm going to say yes.
I have a theory about why black women and white women are having such a hard time getting along, and it starts with a story.
What's up, everybody? What's up, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year, and I hope you're doing good wherever you are. Thank you very much, as always, for sparing your valuable time to pass by here to check on what we have for you in this video. So, in today's video, I want us to take a bit of our time to discuss, to talk about, and maybe just to appreciate black women. Of course, black women, because why not? I think they deserve this. And so lately, I've been coming across videos on the internet talking about black women versus white women, and if there exists a certain psychological fear for black women, especially by white women. And I got intrigued, and this provoked my curiosity, and I went further to try and find out if there is really an overt, or maybe an underlying underwater fear for black women by their counterparts, the white women. But because I'm not a woman, obviously, who better else to discuss about this than, or to get perspectives from, than women themselves, be they black or white women. So I have a few videos of some beautiful women here. I want us to check out, get their perspectives, hear what they have to say about this. And we also have something to say maybe at the end or along the video, and learn along, learn and enjoy. So I hope you enjoy this. So buckle up and let's listen to these beauties. So here we go.
So this lady asks, this black lady, are white women really that scared of black women? And I'm going to say yes. And this is my opinion as a white woman who is 53 years old and has lived in the South in Georgia in my entire life. But it's not being scared, but it's a fear. And it's not a physical fear, it is the mental fear. It is what we see in you and what we see you doing and how it challenges us, and the fear of that. So we see black women and we see how strong you are. We see you coming together as a community. We see you supporting each other. We see you supporting your community, supporting your families, supporting your children, going out and fighting for your rights, being authentic in your race and in your femininity. Anyway. And we're jealous. I think we're jealous because we would love to be that, I think, and we don't know how to break out of the indoctrination that we have been suppressed by our entire lives. And I'm not giving white women a pass, don't get me wrong, but I know I, and most women, white women have been told our entire lives, be quiet, know your place, be a good girl, don't rock the boat, don't be too much. And when you are any of those things, you are ostracized because you have rocked their boat. And that is what black women are. You rock our boat, our mental boat, because you challenge us to look at how we are deficient and not living in our truth, and it makes us uncomfortable. And people don't like to be uncomfortable, and it makes us start to question ourselves, and people don't like to question themselves. We would rather live in our little bubble of white supremacy and what we know and comfortableness. I know that's not a word, than a lot of people would, white women would, rather than challenge themselves to grow and know more, because it's easy. Doing the work is hard. It's really hard. I've been doing the work the past several years, and it's hard. It is hard admitting some truths about yourself and some truths about yourself as a white woman. So yeah, I think that white women are scared of black women because you challenge us in that way, and a lot of us don't like it. And that's why we fear you. It's because we fear what you make us face.
I have a theory about why black women and white women are having such a hard time getting along, and it starts with a story. When I first started teaching, I was in a teacher training program with 3 other women. 2 of them were black and 1 of them was Indian, and we started teaching at the same school, the same grade, at the same time. One of these women, a black woman, completely excelled. She did so much better than I did at literally everything. Classroom management, her test scores were high. She was excellent at literally everything. And something about her excellence didn't sit right with me. I just didn't feel good about it, and I couldn't figure out why I didn't feel good about it. It was internalized racism, but I didn't know that yet. So I had to sit with this idea of her being better than me and trying to figure out why it didn't feel good and feel comfortable for me. And of course, at the time, I didn't know that I needed to do the work of anti-racism, so I didn't think it was possibly because I could have internalized racism. I had to do a lot of study and thought about myself and what could possibly be making me feel this way about this woman. And here's what I discovered. Most of the media that I had consumed up to that point in my life had white people as the central characters. And the shows and other media that I consumed that had white women at the central characters often had black women as the side characters. These black women's role in these movies was to assist the white women, support the white women, advise the white women, but never to rise above the white women. Even shows that were about black women, like The Help, had white women as the central character and the black women as supporting characters. So I internalized the idea that black women were there to support me and to advise me, but not to rise above or become better than me. And that's why when this black teacher was way better and more talented than me, I felt some kind of way about it. Now, I'd imagine lots and lots more white women have also internalized the same idea, and that's why they feel okay stealing black women's content and not giving them any credit, because the black women are just there to advise them anyway. But most black women are natural leaders. Society has forced them to become leaders, and so we need to step aside and let them lead. Even if it means checking our privilege and letting them lead us.
In the previous video, White Woman Whisperer is continuing the man versus bear conversation by asking the question, hey, black woman, if you're in a conference room at work, who would you rather come into that room, a white man or a white woman? Many black women have stitched that video to say they'd rather interact with a white male colleague, and I want to talk about why they're saying this. In her amazing book, Eloquent Rage, and in her chapter, White Girl Tears, Professor Brittany Cooper says this: white lady tears might not seem to be a big deal, but they're actually quite dangerous. When white women signal through their tears that they feel unsafe, misunderstood, or attacked, the whole world rises in their defense. One of the number one things black women are harmed by in the work environment is a misreading of their personality and affect, meaning black women get a lot of negative feedback about their level of collegiality and their level of professionalism. I think some of the reasons black women have a deep distrust of white women in the work environment is because if white women complain about black women at work, particularly our personality or our collegiality, this can deeply harm our careers. And within work environments and beyond, white women's emotionality has more power, systemic power, than black women's emotionality. By this, I mean black women have a distrust of how white women might weaponize their own emotions within the work environment, or might use their emotions to wield systemic power over black women at work. Brittany Cooper goes on to say, white women frequently don't recognize that though women are oppressed around the world, whiteness elevates the value of their femininity and allows them to get away with things that women of color would royally pay for. For example, while a white woman might be able to go to her HR and cry about an experience at work and say that she needs a remedy because she's hurting, Black women might be seen as unprofessional if they cry or complain about their experiences of bias. Black womanhood is not systemically protected, while white womanhood is systemically protected. Now, this isn't to say that white women don't experience gender oppression. Absolutely, they do. But it is to say when white women are in relationships with Black communities, white womanhood is much more protected than Black womanhood or Blackness in general. One strong example of this is looking at, the unaliving culture of Black men as a result of complaints from white women. That when white women call the police or complain about Black people, Black men in particular, their fear can weaponize a whole system against Black men themselves. And in fact, there's a text called At the Dark End of the Street, which is about all the abuse Black women have experienced at the hands of white men. But this abuse has gone under examined because Black womanhood is not systemically protected. It's not seen as systemically important or sacred. I think for many white women, the first step is building friendships with Black women, building friendships across identity lines, learning about Black women's experiences in the world, and learning what it looks like to be a strong ally and advocate for Black women at work and outside of work as well. Ultimately, in this chapter, Professor Cooper says, when white women cry, all other women's tears cease to matter. And I think that's what we have to continue to collectively interrogate: the intersection of race, emotionality, gender, and power that negatively impacts Black women and women of color, and that elevates white women within systemic power.
This might come to a shock to you because it was to me, but as a Black woman, my biggest ally in the corporate space has been white men. I know. I've been told my whole life that my biggest enemy as a Black woman, as a young Black woman, are white men, specifically older white men. But in my experience working with both white women and white men bosses, I found myself, my personal experience, to be safer professionally and personally at work with white men. And it was definitely a bitter pill to swallow. My first few jobs were women bosses, and I wanted to look up to them. I mean, I still look up to them, their professional success, their successes as women, but I just felt like entering those spaces, I was guilty until proven innocent. I felt like I was hired to do a job and then I was entrusted to do that job. I felt like there wasn't really a lot of direct feedback. I felt like I was always messing up secret rules that I wasn't aware of, but they were very clear to them. And I just felt like, just in general, like I was always messing up. And then I would start messing up because you're in this sort of like psychologically difficult place. Now I work with two white men supervisor. One of them is an older white man. And I'm giving so much freedom and space to do my work that at first I was a little bit nervous. But now I'm realizing how much good work you can do when you are trusted at work, when you're not being psychologically attacked by things not relevant to work and sifting through that in order to do your job. And just in general, feeling much more championed and safe as a woman of color. And granted, it could also just be like I locked out with this organization, like I get that. But I've also heard stories of my friends who are women of color just having difficult experiences working with other women, specifically white women, where they just feel like it's not professionally or psychologically safe for them to work there. And so when I first started working with white men bosses, I was like, this is definitely gonna be a change, but I was definitely nervous because some stories I've heard in the past of egotistical bosses and all that stuff, I definitely didn't get that. And before this job, I also worked with another white man boss, and he just also made it very psychologically safe to work there. He was very empathetic and vulnerable, and I just was shocked because that's not what I was told, at least. And so if you're a Black woman, a woman of color in the professional space, and you want to enter a team, but you're nervous because it's a white man boss and you don't know how that's going to work, you may be surprised.
Oh, okay, all right. So I actually think that this sort of fear being portrayed by white women towards Black women is actually because they feel as if eventually uh, Black women, once empowered, once they're in their full in their true element and given a chance to become who they really are, they become a threat. So there's actually a theory by Dr. Kezia Thomas. The theory is called the pet to threat, where actually an underdog, say a Black woman, initially is portrayed as a pet, a pet as in no, soft spoken, no threat, easy to deal with, and everything soft. And then, but eventually, once they start, and this applies in workplace, educational institutions, once the black woman is in their element in the workplace, they rise the ranks and take position of power, or they begin to excel at work or in school. Now people start to feel like they are now not a pet anymore, but a threat. Check out that theory about by Dr. Kezia Thomas called the pet uh, pet to threat theory in regards to what we're talking about here. So you can clearly tell that even in workplace, white women, they do envy and feel as if they're being threatened by the excellence of black women. We cannot even start talking about the excellence of black women in this video, because we will not have enough time for that. Maybe we can do that in a couple of videos to come, because black women, however much we black people have been disenfranchised, but have always turned out to really show who they are and excelled, beyond any reasonable doubt in just about anything. And this really does matter, because we're talking about excelling against all odds. Women generally can be said to be oppressed worldwide, but that for black women even goes a step further because of the color of their skin. And I often love to say that colorism and racism, starting from slavery, and then the white supremacy thought that now colonialism was a more profitable venture than slavery, because it started with slavery and then colonization, and there are actually two sides of the same coin. Is just that white supremacy thought that now colonization was much more profitable than slavery. What the common person does not realize is slavery, as it were, and eventually colonization and neo-colonialism is an enterprise, is a multi-billion enterprise that benefits the white people, and not even all the white people, because once we talk about the privileges, the white man privileges, we're not even going to talk about say institutional advantage, institutional privileges, where the white person has the privileges, has advantage over the black person in institutions, any kind of institutions. But the fact that I, as a black person, and I always have to be conscious, especially when I'm out of my space, out of continental Africa, out of a place of a locality of black people, I have always to carry in my consciousness, in my mind, my blackness. I have to always remember that I am black. It has to always matter. It has to stick with me every time that, my identity is black. That's a bigger problem, and that is not suffered by white people, but because white people do not have to think of themselves, of the color of their skin, regardless of whether they are in a white people setup or in a black people setup. But for a black person, especially in Europe, in America, the global north, you're consciously having to remind yourself or to know that you're a black person. And because it's part of, there are restrictions that come by that, and you have to be careful all the time. And that's why I often say, as a black person in, say, in America or in Europe, you should try to make a point in your life, somewhere in your life, to go to a place of black people, just black people. Could be continental Africa, to you reunite with your people in Africa, or say go to the Caribbean, a place of black majority. So you just feel what it is like to never think about the color of your skin, to never think about color, to just walk unconscious of what you look like, what your skin is. And I love to say that because this white supremacy enterprise called colorism, called racism, um, what happens is it does, of course, it does disenfranchise the black people the most. But for even the common white person, what they don't know is it's also a disadvantage to them, because it gets so much into your head, just as a regular white person, that you begin, and this is where the negative impact comes to regular white people. You internalize these concepts so much, to an extent that you begin to think you're a better human being because you're white. Whiteness does make you a better human being, but that's not true. What makes you a better human being is being active on trying to be a good person, doing this and that, not just being white. And so you stop to improve as a white person, you stop to improve trying to be a better person, because you think somehow your whiteness makes you a better person. Something else that's I find funny at times is when white men, or just men in general, talk about how they have something for black women, like they love black women, when they clearly come out to just declare that their preference is black women somehow, for whatever reason. It is always viewed in a way like, it's a surprise, kind of like, wow, it's a wow thing. And people often say, because I saw it somewhere, people are like, that's a fetish, especially if it is white men. And a white man comes out to declare that for them, they love black women. They find black women being his cup of, their preference. It would just be like, I think you have a kind of weird or different, very different fetish. I mean, kind of try to make it like it's not the norm. But when a black person or a white person says they love white women, it sounds like it's normal. It's just nothing to be surprised about. Here is a video of a brother trying to clarify this. So let's take a minute to hear what he's saying.
This is not the first time that I explain why I love black women, but I'll be more than happy to explain. So here are the reasons why that I love black women. So the first reason is because every race and every color is beautiful. However, to me, in my honest opinion, I really, really think that black women are seriously one of the most beautiful, gorgeous, stunning human beings that I've ever come across in my life. Like, looks don't mean everything, but like, just black women have so much beauty. Like, I really just cannot help it, especially like their skin colors. Like, they have such very beautiful skin. And especially the ones who have a dark skin complexion, like the dark skinned black women, I mean. But the problem is that a lot of dark skinned black women receive more hate. Like, they get called girls that are too dark, something like that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't see any black woman out there that's too dark or too light. Like, she's just a black woman who is full of beauty, period. And I'm going to be honest, I'm more into dark-skinned black women, but I don't care how light, how dark she is. I just want someone who is rightful for me. And the second reason is that black women are very loving people. And the third reason is that black women really, really do not tolerate any kinds of negativity or any kinds of bullshit. Excuse my French, but I'm the same way. As much as I don't tolerate those things, neither do black women. And the other reason is this. Black women stand up for other people that they know and love and care about. Which basically means that they're emotionally strong people. And I'm the same way as well, because no matter what, if I see anybody out there who's, something negative happen toward them, I'm gonna stand up for them because I care about them and I love them with all my heart, something like that. Whether they're my friends, whether they're my family, or the person I'm in a relationship with, etc. Black women stand up for people that they know and love and care about. So those are the reasons why I love black women.
I think it's good to constantly remind our black queens and just black people in general, incessantly remind them of their place, their power, how powerful you are as black people, we are as a black people, because for ages and ages, they repeated the same story telling us of who we were and how we didn't deserve falsely until we somehow began to believe in that. And now the only way that I know we can counter that narrative is to continue to counter preach that, to challenge that propaganda narrative by reminding ourselves of who we really are. Because black people are not great because people say. As a matter of fact, the most resilient people on earth are black people, and more so black women. Because if you see the amount of how odds are set up against black people, and we're still surviving, we're still here, we're still smiling, we're still kicking, we're still alive, we still have the zeal and zest to live this life. You will tell, if you know the amount of energy that goes into trying to not disenfranchise, but probably just wipe out black people, but we're still here, then you will tell how much resilient black people are. And more so, I say this, black women, because if already being black is a disadvantage, add to that, in these uh, Western, this imperialist Western capitalistic society, women even still have to beat more challenges, to just get through, basically to get through life. And in Africa, we sometimes are being misled, because once we can't tell our story, once we're not able to write our story, then the one who owns the pen and the paper will tell false stories about us. It's made to look like Africa did not see the space of women in our society. But I can tell you, as a matter of fact, that is not true. Africa, as it were, really was a very organized society that knew where women were supposed to be placed, and where men are supposed to be placed. And there was always proper division of labor, and it tried to remove the friction that this Western imperialism brought here, of making women look like, creating a binary understanding of humanity. I have always said, trying to understand humanity in a way that we think we are somehow we are always opposites. Women are opposite of men, white are opposite of black, while we're basically just human beings that are different and unique in our ways, and we are actually an opposite that is actually complementary. And that is exactly what it is for women and men. It's not actually opposites. two opposing sides, but there are two sides that get along, that actually complement each other. But it's made it look like we're opposition, an opposition, a fight, and just creating an enmity in between there. Of course, because there is a benefit to that, and I often say that to whoever that is trying to propagate all that. But in traditional African societies, those things didn't exist. And I'm not trying to say maybe nobody was being oppressed, but somehow it was clear. And Africans didn't really love to challenge nature as it is, but to embrace nature as it is. And the thing is, once you challenge nature, you might think you're succeeding, and in the beginning, but eventually it will catch up with you, and you will know that you cannot really challenge nature, and the consequence is usually bad. This video is for us, is for Black people and Black women to realize who they are, to stop buying into narratives of thinking they're not deserving, they have to look like so and so, they're not beautiful, they're not appreciated enough, to take their space, to realize who we are as Black people and fight for ourselves. Because if we don't fight for ourselves, nobody is going to fight for us. And the best way to empower a community is to empower the women. Men in African societies might really be regarded as the major breadwinners in societies, but guess who the core of families are usually. A house has never been as cold in an African society like a house without a woman, a mother figure. You can have everything in that house. You can have your father and the siblings, but as long as the mother is not in that house, the house is always going to be cold, like literally cold. It doesn't matter how warm you try to make the house, but the woman is the warmth, is the heart of that house. So this is a video to appreciate Black excellence and Black women. At the beginning of this year, there's a first video of this year. Thank you very much for sticking along all year long. I hope you go ahead and share this video, and in fact also share your opinions, your thoughts on this in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up, and if you're new here, please I ask you to subscribe to this channel for much more interesting content like this. So until next time, I will see you in the next video. Peace.